What's up, everybody? Derek Jonhson here, also known as Rattletrap 1776 in the house. So today's going to be a fun one. So I'm going to break down these two recent quote-unquote Hunter Biden interviews, which was not really Hunter, but if you're new to all this, then you can catch up. Where we go one, we go all, right? So this is like a two-part thing. So for all those who've been following me for a long time, this is right up your alley. This is right for you. This is just for you. This is your vindication, your validation, your verification, your everything. This is the one you want to go show your friends and your family that told you, but you got to do it compassionately, we know. But I don't know. If you got my personality, then the playground is free to roam, and you can do what you want to do. I would personally tell them, I told you so. But you can choose your own method of delivery, or you can just show them this video and I'll do it for you. I'll be sure to add all the little chuckles everywhere it's supposed to be. But when I was growing up, my dad and mom and grandparents always taught me to do what's right from the start. If you do what's right from the start, then you never have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about being paranoid. You don't have to worry about looking over your shoulder. And then you don't have to tell a lie that has to tell a lie that has to feed a lie that has to tell a lie that has to feed another lie that has to, you know what I mean? Just be a human being. Be a good, decent, moral, upright human being. And what you've seen in the last 35 years of your life, especially depending on how old you are, everybody has seen people go after each other for stuff you can't prove, one, unless there's what? A court record of it. Law enforcement, right? So we have to reestablish that in society again, is that, no, don't wait 40, 50 years till someone's in position, power, status, with money to go, oh, he tried to kiss me in the hallway 47 years ago, and you didn't do anything about it then, and you're bold now. See, hindsight's always 20/20. Anybody who's lived a little life, hindsight's always 20/20. We make decisions in our life sometimes we wish we wouldn't have done, like maybe buying a vehicle or something of that nature, to where, I bought a Mercedes one time, instantly regretted it. Within a week, instantly regretted it. This is back when I lived in Nashville doing the music thing on the business side. I had a Z71, fully loaded Z71 Chevrolet 4x4, and it was awesome. It was a crew cab, and then boom, drove by a lot one day, saw this little Mercedes, and got to thinking, oh, that imagery will go on my business suit and my tie and all this other stuff. And within a week, I was over that Mercedes. When I went to go deer hunting that year, it instantly sank in, where's my truck? Then I was what? Stuck with what? A Mercedes. All right. So we all make decisions, right, that we have to live with. And those are decisions that you can learn to live with, because it wasn't no harm, no foul, right? But then you have people out there who are criminals, right? They're outright criminals. And then we in society, we deem what is right, what's wrong, what's moral, what's not, what's etiquette, what's not, what's protocol, what's not. We all deem that. Rules, procedures, regulations, the good kind of regulations, not the other kind, but like military regulations. They're basically rules and procedures and protocols and etiquette. We all deem that, right? That's why every man and woman, American, have to be what? Involved. Involved how? Family, friends, community, neighborhood, town, city, town hall, city hall, all these other things. We have to do that. But then you have to do what? You have to have a pretty decent mind. You don't need to come in there yelling, cussing, screaming, and all these other things. You need to come in there just cool, calm, collected. Now, You know, we all have our days. I know I had mine on August 24, 2022, when a liberal got in the comment box, and then I let them have it, and it became known as the rant. And that's what put me in your screen, in your phone, in your laptop. That's what brought me here, the rant. All right, because I did. And we're all human. All right, but there's things in history that are bigger than others. There's things that are bigger than others in our world. God, I believe, sees them probably differently. But in our world down here, we separate murder from theft. We separate theft from a lie. All right? And we all make those different punishment levels. Right? So then you have things that you've all lived through, we've all lived through in the last 35 years. It's called drama and propaganda. Drama and propaganda. Drama and propaganda are what builds what? Narratives, but it also builds narrative for a group and or an individual and or a couple people to do what? Most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Make money. And then you conquer, divide. Conquer, divide. Conquer, divide. And that's what you've all lived through the last, especially since technology really boomed. The internet. Right? The internet has ruined relationships. It's ruined business relationships, friendships, all kinds of things, because you try to read a text message, same thing like watching me. People will watch me, and then you try to base what you think in your life as, oh, he's downgraded me, he's always negative, and he's this. No, I'm truthful, I bring receipts, I'm direct, I'm straightforward. And then people try to perceive me in the way of what? Of what they want to perceive. It's not the case. Right? I'm put here for a reason. I was put in the lane for a reason. All right? So everything has a lane, everything has a reason, and then it depends on what it is and who it is. So everybody wants to judge certain things based off your little bubble. And sometimes you got to rise above your little bubble and see the bigger picture. So you have criminals out there who are legit criminals, and there are legit records on them. All right, and so we all deem that. We all base that. So it's kind of like me. I tell you, I'm a retired veteran, first off. All right, there's that. And then I show you all the laws and the orders that are currently invoked that outline a military government, military operation, military occupation, and a continuity government. All the receipts are there. I can't make you read. I can't make you study. I can't make you comprehend what you read. They're all there because I have a base that have read, have studied, and comprehend. And every day there's a nugget. Every week there's a nugget. Every month there's a revelation. Every year now has been a revelation. And it's a chronological order, and it's building, and it's building, and it's building to a pinnacle level, which is going to be the grandiose finale. It's going to be that. All right? And I work the same way the military works because I've been in it for one. Two, President Trump, it's a chain of command. And a legit administration will utilize that chain of command and delegate to people in each slot. And each person has to pull their weight in every slot. Each person. What you've seen your last 30, 40, 50, 60, depending on how old you are. If you're 70 or 80 years old, then great for being here because it shows how hip you are being on technology. But if you're 70 or 80 years old, you have not seen a legislation or administration with legislation work accordingly. Not in true fashion of the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch in that order of which our founders put them in. You haven't seen that until President Donald John Trump. And it's not just him. He put his name, face, brand, image on this. There's multiple men and women on the background who are operating this operation. Bipartisan. So all this fighting still out there is unnecessary. All these Republicans. I receive more negative comments and hate from Republicans, conservatives, quote-unquote patriots, and Q people. I receive more from them than I do a liberal. Liberals, though, let's just be honest, they don't know if they're a male or a female. They look in their pants every morning and they try, I don't know what I want to be today. All right, so they're on a whole other plateau which ain't really high at all. It's really low. But there should be no one being upset about a retired veteran showing you a unique, strategic, special operation that allowed this to take place lawfully to drain the swamp on all levels. That's what you've been watching. So there's these unique strategies that are involved in special operations. There's unique strategies, unique tactics. All right? So a lot of you in your lifetime, outside of drama and outside of propaganda, outside of that, all right, I know people say they hate drama and they hate it, but most people do end up in it somehow. All right, I don't know how, but they do. But most everybody hates drama. So we'll go with the theory that people hate drama. Well, if you hate drama, then that means you need to do what? Apply what needs what? Applying. What is applicable to you? See, I don't talk about aliens. I don't talk about round earth, flat earth, health, and all these things. One, because that's something that if you want to talk about and you want to sit around the campfire and talk about and believe in, hey, I'm for you. I'm not going to knock you. I'm for you. All right, but it's not something you can tangibly put your hands on. It's not what President Trump's working with either. None of that. It's straight up laws and orders. Even Q people. Q people get mad too sometimes, and I'm like, Q is going to go away. The laws and orders are our foundation. So a lot of people are clinging on to something that they're just clinging on to, and they're clinging a little too hard, and when it goes away, you're going to have to cope with that, all right? And maybe you're an expert coper. Who knows? But laws and orders are where it's at. Laws and orders don't have to be perfect, but that's where you come into play. You don't have to be a lawyer to know the law. We deem in society, there's one of those things again, one of those rules that we've established, that we have to do what? We have to study the law in order to what? Practice the law. But you can study the law and know the law without practicing the law. That is one of the very key core foundations that our founders talked about with the Declaration of Independence. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations becomes destructive of these ends, it is their right, it is their duty to what? Overthrow such government. So you can't overthrow such government if you don't what? If you don't know what's going on that makes it what? Corrupt, awry, disastrous. Now, you can have a inclination that something's not right, but you and everybody needs to be able to put a thumb or a finger on that and say, nope, that right there, that goes against our Constitution. That goes against our foundation. That goes against our Declaration. That goes against our ideologies. So it had to be a top-down operation on purpose. And sometimes a lot of you know this. Sometimes it's better not to tell on people. Sometimes it's better to make them tell on themselves. Sometimes lessons learned are a lot better when someone gets caught or gets trapped, but they do what? They hang themselves. They tell on themselves. Now you'll have people out there, the only people who would disagree with that are the people who say, well, people are dying, Derek Jonhson, while y'all play mind games and y'all play straight. People have been dying. Where have you been? I ought to title this, Where Have You Been? Real slang. Where have you been? Why haven't you been helping? Why didn't you lift a finger? Why didn't you go crazy on the video? Why didn't you yell? Where have you been? Where have you been? So the only people who could be in arms about that are the people who are sitting in their chair, not doing anything about it, and they're pretty tough back here on this little screen. They're pretty tough back here with no name and no face. Most of the people who have comments have no name, no face. So look at all the people who protest out there wearing masks. Did you see Martin Luther King Jr. wearing a mask? Did you see Rosa Parks wearing a mask when she refused to give up her seat? Did you see her trying to block her face? No. They were proud of what they were standing for. And it doesn't even matter if you disagree with it or not. They proudly stood up for what they believed in. Name, face. So, how is that so difficult for people to understand? You gotta stand for something or you'll fall for anything, like the old song goes. But sometimes it's better to trap people. And then they tell on themselves, but it also does what? It teaches everybody watching a valuable lesson. And that's what you've been watching. This whole thing's been a strategic, unique, special operation. And it's trapped. It's funneled them. It's funneled the deep state like this. They come to a wall and they can't get past that wall. And then when they get to that wall, they have to do what? See if I have one around here. Pretend this is a flag. They have to do this right here. They have to raise that white flag of surrender, which is unconditional surrender. And that's what you've witnessed from 2017 to present day, August the 10th, 2025. That's what you've witnessed to present day. So they're setting the stage right now. And we're going to break down the two most recent quote-unquote Hunter Biden interviews because they're setting the stage. Criminals are dumb. Criminals are dumb. They're very dumb. For example, and we won't go too deep into this. For example, though, almost 3 years ago, a group of people came after me. All right? They tried to steal my federal trademark on the USPTO.gov, on an official federal government website. Forever says live with mine, abandoned with theirs. So they also were probably going to try to do some kind of extortion, which means like, hey, we got your trademark. If you want it back, money. That's extortion, right? And what has President Trump been talking about recently? Extortion. And what did Lieutenant Colonel Bosey, Special Operations, we were on a show not too long ago. What did he say? He said all of us in Special Operations are what? 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead of everybody? And that's why my books are ahead of everything. My first book here has been out since December 2023. All right, short read. It's not long. It's not even a novel. It's a workbook. This stems from my documents that I wrote that are on a Google Drive. I published. I put them in publishing. I published those January 2021. And everything from those documents, I already say what this says in a shorter version. Then part 2, I just go into special operations a little deeper and teach people how you think outside the box. How do you have a foundation? But once you have your foundation, then you can think outside the box strategically. And then always come back to what? Like a pad, like a helicopter pad. Come back to your foundation. But until your foundation's there, if you wander off too far, then you can go down a rabbit hole that's not even true, but it sounds good to you, but it's not true at all. You may want it to be true, but it ain't true. It's only true in your world. The military laws and orders, from military laws and orders, military regulations, military customs, and then your federal laws and orders, those could be wrong as deemed by society one day, but guess what? That's what President Trump had to use right now, and they're using it so freaking strategically and so awesome against the deep state. They're taking all of their literature, they're taking every word and flipping it and using it back on them, saying, hey, you left it in law, so I guess we can use it. Because executive branch is to do what? Enforce the law. Legislative wrote it, and it's been written for years. All right? So that's why you got to know these things. This is so freaking epic what's taking place that I can't hardly stand it. All right, this is like the Holy Grail. This is like the, like your Super Bowl or whatever you want to call it. This is it, right? This is the fun stuff. So that's why I get passionate for people, because I'm like, look, this military laws and orders and federal are not conspiracy theories. Laws and orders are not conspiracy theories. But you got to learn strategy, and you got to learn some tactics. If you really want to know what's going on, you got to learn strategy and tactics. A strategy and a tactic is not to steal someone's federal trademark and try to prevent book sales. That's called defamation slander, libel, it's also fraud, which are all can be tried as a felony because a federal trademark is felony. All right, when you try to go after that, it's a federal. All right, so a group of people, and then you know what they did? They left all these traces. The dummy who registered for it, he's got a video on his personal pages and his family pages walking by a mailbox. And on that mailbox is the same address, and even the house is in the video, the same house and address that is what? On the federal trademark. So criminals are dumb. They leave traces. They're really, really dumb. There's been only a few serial killers in history who have made it 20, 30, 40 years in hiding. It's because they were smart. They're evil, but they're smart. And what did President Trump tell all of you? He said there's smart people in D.C., they're smart and they're dumb, they're stupid. But then he said there's smart people in D.C. who are what? They're very crafty, they're intelligent, but they're what? Evil. So see, a lot of people have forgotten literature, you've forgotten terminology, you've forgotten words, glossaries, indexes. Words matter. And once you become a certain age, we all went through high school. We all had some cool words that we said when we were in high school that didn't mean what they were supposed to mean. But when you become an adult, you're supposed to do what the Bible says. What? Put childish things what? Away. Put childish things away. So you're an adult now. You should be looking at literature the way it sits. Punctuation the way it sits. A dash on a ball cap. Punctuation. It ain't changed. A dash between numbers means what it's always meant. Now, again, whoever out there, they can make it whatever they want, and they can sit there and look in the mirror and say, no, it's not, no, it's not. No. And the more they say, no, it's not, doesn't make it true. So criminals are dumb. They leave traces. And they end up doing what? They end up being the one who does what? Brings the castle down. Which is what, quote unquote, Hunter Biden has done. Hunter Biden brought the whole castle down. The dumb son who was not doing what with his life? Hunter was not following in the footsteps of Joe. Let's forget about Joe for a moment, the real Joe, the Senator Joe. Let's forget about that for a moment, who he is, what he was, all that stuff. Let's forget about that for a moment. Let's look at the real facts. The real facts that Hunter wasn't following like Bo was. All right, Bo was in the world of government. Hunter wasn't. Hunter was the one who was using Daddy's name and getting jobs with Daddy's name and getting payments with Daddy's name. He wasn't pursuing a career. He was taking hits where he could. Huge difference. That's why terminology matters. It was him who brought the castle down because he was stupid and dumb and ignorant. So, leverage. You've heard a lot of people out there who use the term leverage, but they don't know how to use it. They don't know how to apply it. They have one little tiny word, but they don't know how to apply all this. They've been talking about how Epstein is a leverage. They've been talking about how, Hunter is a leverage. But they don't know how to apply it because you know what they don't have? Foundation. They don't have the laws and the orders. Now, I'm not knocking people who can't think and remember everything like I can. God did bless me with the ability to have a photographic memory. I can read something one time, got it, and then also I can articulate it and I can deliver it. Therefore, that means you have to do what? If you don't have those capabilities, then you got to do it and dissect it in the way that you can, because it's all there. Anyone who says it's not, they're playing either dumb and incapable, or they're ignorant, and or they could be someone who is the swamp. So they're setting the stage. All right, they're setting the stage here. So 2017 to 2021, you've heard me say this over and over again. 2017 to 2021 was a resetting of the legislative branch. A lot of all the unique laws and orders that invoke the military, the reserve components, the National Guard, all these were invoked from 2017 to 2021. But then the latter part of 2020 is what set up, latter part of 2020, let me clarify, the latter part of 2020 lawfully is what set up 2021 to 2025. When the whole world thought Joe Biden was president, wasn't. By law. It was a puppet government, government in exile, all done in World War II. But see, most of the men who are qualified to talk about these tactics and strategies are where? In the graveyard. My grandfather's one of them. Served during 43 to 45 of the army that when the most popular, the most known puppet government took place. All right. All those men, if they are alive, they're too old. All right. Most of them can't retain a lot of information because of their age. And then most of them wouldn't do what? Get on a podcast. So it required people like me, but especially people like me who had a grandfather who served and then also taught me all those. And I retained it. And I added that to my life experience and everything. So 2021 and 2025 was the resetting of the executive branch. And when you apply all the chronological things that add up, January the 1st, well, you could go back, really, the invocation of the Executive Order 13961, which is the invocation of continuity government, December the 7th, 2020. December the 10th is the most recent and most last, well, it's hard to say, it's the most recent and last, not most last, is the most recent and the last, or the last and the most recent order of succession within the Department of Defense. Every president's had an order of succession within the DOD except for, quote-unquote, Joe. All right, then move forward. January the 1st. FEMA, Department of Homeland Security. All right, they put out a publication, Reconstitution of the Executive Branch, which means to put something back into its original state. So if you're having a reconstitution of the executive branch, it's telling you that the executive branch has not been in its what? Original state. Which we should know that if you've known anything about government the last 40, 50 years. You should know that easily. January 6th was not what people thought it was because they don't know what? Laws and orders. They don't know what they witnessed because they don't know what? Foundation. Laws and orders. January 6th was freaking awesome what took place. It was awesome what took place because you witnessed something for the first time in U.S. history. Lawfully. January the 20th, 2021. The whole world thought they saw Joe Biden get inaugurated. Didn't. It was a funeral. By Army regulations. Army regulations. You could be the queerest queer of a queer of a queer. Atheist of an atheist of an atheist of an atheist. Or you could be the whatever. Just the biggest witchcraft, God hater, whatever you want to be. You could be the biggest bigot on the planet. But if you served in the military honorably, and you have an honorable discharge, or you retired out of the military, guess what you get? A military funeral service. You get a flag draped coffin, like every other hardcore conservative patriot that was in the military. Has nothing to do with anything. The whole world witnessed, quote unquote, Joe, with a funeral. Then 2025, the present day, is the resetting of the judicial branch. That's why this is so important, because these quote-unquote Hunter Biden interviews, which we're about to get to, ties straight into what you're about to witness in the next 4 years with the judicial branch and what is on the Supreme Court docket with President Trump. File Donald J. Trump versus United States government. So you're watching the resetting of it. It's a cleansing. And see, once you know all that, then you'll be sitting here with chill bumps, especially with what old quote-unquote Hunter said on his quote-unquote interviews. I say quote-unquote every time because that's not the real Hunter, and he's not roaming free. And so I'm going to teach you how you separate your emotions, the drama, the propaganda, your feelings, and your emotions. I'm going to teach you how to separate your feelings and emotions and how you watch a video like that all the way through without getting lost on a little hiccup when they do a gaslighting form. The whole thing, you have to watch the whole thing. But then you've got to have the foundation of the laws and orders to be able to watch what you're watching with clarity and without getting your panties in the wad, as the old saying is. All right. So I'm going to look at my notes here. We're going to read something really quick. This is the most epic. So I'll go straight out the gate because that's what they did. In the very first 13 minutes of the interview, signed, sealed, delivered. They verified, validated, and verified the contents in this book and part 2. Because these are the only books out there that tell you exactly what's going on lawfully in a chronological order. And intellectual property allows me to be the only ones to ever have it that way. Thanks to President Trump's executive orders on intellectual property. So this is what quote-unquote Hunter said. So before we get there real quick, when people let your emotions and your feelings have to be set aside, of course they're going to say things that do what? Rile up certain people. It's meant to rile up the people who don't know what? Have a foundation and know the laws and orders and know what's going on right now lawfully as a special, unique, strategic operation. Laws outline that. So your emotions and your feelings need to be treated like Native American chiefs. The Native American chiefs were known for sitting back and observing. And they watched everything. Now, if it was something where they personally were getting ambushed, a little bit different story. But when it was something where an action took place and they weren't immediately, directly involved in it, they sat back. They observed. They calculated. They thought. They pondered. And then they strategized. A lot of people think the word retreat means loss. Retreat don't mean that you lost. Retreat sometimes can be the best thing that an enemy can do, and or whatever you want to, whether you're the belligerent or the occupier or whatever you are. It doesn't matter who you are. Sometimes though, retreat can be the best thing, especially if you're the good guys. Sometimes a retreat, you can retreat back to strategize, to regroup, to get back and go, hey, all right, this is what we thought was going to happen, but it didn't happen. You come back here and retreat, and then what happens? What if the enemy slacks off? The enemy goes, whew, we got them. They backed off. We're good. We thought they were going to be strong, courageous, tough, and come in. Then they back off, and then what happens? The good commander back here circles back around. They flanked on them. They flank over here. Got the enemy. All right, so there's a lot of things, tactics and strategies that have been involved with this, but in reality, what you're witnessing now is just a straight-up disclosure. All this stuff's already happened. It's like the tweet that President Trump put out, I guess it's been 2 months back now. It's hard to believe it's been that long, a month or so back, whenever it was. But we put out, here's the president who revolutionized using social media for the presidency. He puts out a truth that he's always put out. He shares people's stuff all the time, but it looks like it's his. It'll be like this, and it'll have one little thing above it in a picture. And this one photo, after millions of times this man has taken to social media and retruthed something, all of a sudden he got it wrong on this one where it said Joe Biden had been executed in 2020. So you had half the people saying, oh, he's really going off the rocker now. Then you had other people, oh, he sure knows how to troll them liberals. It said 2020. Well, January the 20th, 2021 is after 2020. And they showed the whole world he had a funeral. By law. So it's showing people are not a believer in laws and orders when you get negative or you let your emotions and your feelings get in the way. So until your foundation is set on those laws and the orders that outline this unique, strategic, special operation, which is I normally have it right here with me. The dash. Until you know those laws and orders fluently in your head, like I do, and you know that, you will continue to be lost. But for all you great patriots, let's read what old Hunter said. He said, I have no problem with people that are deserving of punishment to be punished. But to create an entire system which you have no due process, no habeas corpus, no ability of any judicial review as it relates to the state's actions against you, without any chance of pleading your case or your innocence or any tampering of whatever it is that you've been accused of doing, it's barbaric. That's why we have a Constitution. That's why we have rights under that Constitution. That's why we, the Supreme Court, has held over the past 250 years, is that certain punishments are outside the scope of any human being's constitutional rights. Now that was what he said at about minute 13 if you go look at the second interview. First off, we're going to read from the Constitution here in a minute. But first, you got to remember the judicial branch has already ruled on President Trump. He can use the 1798 Aliens Act. See, this is why you got to know this stuff, and this is why you got to know what to separate. You got to know what's gaslighting, what's meant for color, what's meant for distraction. But this is how you think like Derek Jonhson. This is how you think. This is how you read and think like Derek Jonhson. 2 words in this whole paragraph of an hour and 2-minute interview. 2 words just validated the whole military operation, everything. He just did a form of mirror politics where it sounds like gaslighting and it sounds like all these other things to the average person, but to the people who know what's going on, who are part of the operation, 2 words in there. And he said it. He told you. He validated you. But first we're going to read the Constitution before we give it away. 5th Amendment, word for word, 5.6.2.3. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases, there's that terminology. Ladies, where you at, ladies? All the women out there. Ladies, guys, y'all got to step your game up with terminology. That one little word just turned the table. Except, meaning all the other is true, but if something over here on this side of the equation happens, then all the other is what? Void. No. Not. So let's read that again. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. How do you do the Trump dance? How you do it? I suck at dancing. I'm your typical white boy. I can't dance. I'm all shook up. Can't dance. I'm your typical white boy. Except in cases arising in the land and naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. If someone could do the claw dance, you should just get up and start toe tapping. Thank you, fake Hunter Biden. Thank you. This book already outlines the war. be in time of war. All your war orders by President Donald John Trump. Then he says what? Let's back up. But to create an entire system in which you have no due process and no what? No habeas corpus. What did Stephen Miller just say in an interview not long ago about habeas corpus? And what's been in the books for almost 2 years now? And what's been in documents? A thing called military occupation, military government, continuity government. The suspension clause, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 2 of the what? United States what? Constitution. Thank you, fake Hunter Biden, for saying the Constitution in the same sentence. Because the Constitution outlines all of this and what President Donald Trump has done. That's why Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 is very, very important. You've heard me break that down over and over and over and over and over and over again. And the codification in Section 1550 specifically tells you that it's not in the War Powers Act permanently. It's there temporarily, which means it's what? It's a special operation. But it had to be recorded there for record's sake. For what reason? Because Obama don't have something in the what? War Powers Act that's going to do what? Prosecute him. It had to be there for record's sake. Records and history. But it's part of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2020. Which means it was what? Funded. It's a bill. It's the act. It was a bill that became an act. Guess who had a Democratic-controlled House of Representatives? President Donald John Trump. So a controlled Democrat House passed the bill that became the act that funded all of what you've seen from December the 20th, 2019 to present day. Now you'll hear people out there say we've been in a continuity government the whole time. Not necessarily. Now, it's been a military operation the whole time, but by law, they did certain things at certain points. So December the 20th, 2019 was the passing of that, the NDA of 2020, which put in Section 1550 in the War Powers Resolution Act of 1973 in Title 50, Chapter 33. Chapter 33 is the War Powers Resolution Act. And President Trump started telling you in speeches all the way back then that we've been invaded. We've been invaded. It's an invasion. This is an invasion. We've been invaded. Then he turned around and said, our greatest threats are not abroad, they're within. He said that in 2022, one speech. So we've been invaded. Invaded. You know what the writ of habeas corpus is? The suspension clause? It's the rebellion or invasion of public safety. And there's old quote-unquote Hunter bringing it all into one sentence. He's sitting there saying exactly what happened. Now, Hunter, quote-unquote, is the tip of the iceberg. So this is kind of like if you're not used to growing up around a pool, all right, and you want to see if the water's cold or not, you stick your toes in the water and you see how cold it is. Versus me, I just jump in and get it over with. But most people, a lot of people will stick their foot in the pool, and this is what this is. This is that interview. Also, in the first interview, this is the second one that I'm breaking down, but in the first interview, they do what? They confirm the laptop by, quote-unquote, Hunter, which we're going to break down in a minute. They confirm everything. So it doesn't matter if he's real or fake for the sake of it's an operation. It does if you already know, but it doesn't for your friends and family who just want to sit there and argue. You say, hey, you want to argue, you can argue the fake or real, but you can't argue laws and orders. Here they are. Here's the chronological. You don't know what a special operation is? You don't know what a strategic operation is? Well, get to studying. Here it is. This is it. All right, so Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. In the first 180 days, it specifically reads in there, it says specifically in that clause, in the first 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, and then it says, and every 180 days thereafter, the President's to report to the defense committees. Well, how come, quote unquote, Joe doesn't have an order of succession within the National Security Council or the Department of Defense? Those are military domains. He doesn't have an order of succession with any military domain, which should tell you what? The same thing it told you January the 20th. He didn't get the ride into D.C. on Air Force One like every other president got. Why not? If he was president, he should deserve everything that every other president got. Why not? The most Republican, conservative, patriot would have to admit that by law and regulations if, quote unquote, Joe was president. You'd have to say, hey, that's what every other president got. Why didn't he get all these things? Because he's not real. By law, he's not. Executive Order 13848, President Trump signed September the 12th, 2018, which was 2 months before any election under President Trump. Now we're going to read what old Hunter said on this. Let me pull it up here. Now this is even more epic. So he's talking about how the MAGA base is a conspiracy theory that we, the people of conservative world, patriot world, he specifically says the global cabal pedophilia conspiracy. All right. So this ties in two different ways. We're going to tie in President Trump first, and then we're going to tie in the what quote unquote Hunter revealed in his first interview. So this is, I'm quoting from the interview of Hunter. All right. Is he saying that we, the Democrats, have the ammunition, the conspiracy to deploy against Donald Trump in 2016, and we didn't use it? Then we had 4 years to do it while he was president, and then we had 4 years to do it when my dad was president of the United States, and then we didn't use it in 2024 campaign against him either. We waited until he became president, took over the DOJ like no other president has in his lifetime, took over the FBI, and they report directly to the president for the first time in history, by the way. And now that they have the information, there's nothing to see, and it was all a hoax by Biden. It literally makes no sense. And I wonder if it'll work, though. I mean, with his supporters. I wonder if they'll drop it. And then the host says, do you think they'll forget? He goes, I don't know. I guess this is going to be the real test. I think this is going to be the first real test. I mean, in other times they have. I mean, look, he said the election was stolen, and Fox News followed him down that rabbit hole to the tune of $782 million in a lawsuit that they had to pay to Dominion. All right, that was Hunter's quote in the second interview. So there's a lot of words in there, and there's a lot of breakdowns. First off, it was $787 million that Fox had to pay, not President Trump. So see, that's the first thing people will get hung up on, little things like that. Then you have to look and know the laws, what's in place. All right. So they're talking about Epstein first, and then how it's a conspiracy theory. That's what he's talking about. Then they go into the election. So this right here is what you call mirror politics. The election, if Hunter Biden was real and he was sitting in an interview free to roam, free to say whatever, you wouldn't talk about the election and say it in this kind of context. All of that right there is going to lead to the real numbers. And guess who has the real numbers? The military. So when you see anybody out there who's hating on me or hating on the military, there's your first problem right there. There's your first problem. Because the National Guard have the numbers. The National Guard have been deployed for all the elections. The National Guard have the numbers. So if you're willing to argue with the military, then you probably need to be deported. I would deport you. If I saw any kind of comment in any comment box, I would deport you. You're not appreciative of this nation. The level of disrespect for the military out there and veterans is unprecedented. The amount of influencers who are stealing information from me and different people trying to make it look like they knew the whole time just because they want to make a buck. The level of disrespect for veterans and also military is unprecedented. So he says, so why would you deflect from Epstein and then talk about the election in this detail? Now listen to what he said again. So he's saying about stealing the election. He's saying if we had the ability to steal the election, that's what he's talking about. So listen, deploy meaning against. So if we had the ammunition to deploy against President Trump in 2016, then we had 4 years to do it while he's president, and then we had 4 years to do it when my dad was president, and then we didn't use it in 2024 campaign against him either. See, he just told on himself right there. He just hung everybody with the election. When you know the laws and orders, Executive Order 13848 brings down the House. Executive Order 13848 was signed September the 12th, 2018 by President Donald John Trump. That was 2 months before any election under President Trump. The first election would have been November 2018. And in that executive order, it's about election interference. Why would, quote-unquote, Joe Biden continue that executive order 4 years in a row just to hand back to President Trump on January the 20th, 2025? That makes no sense. Because then you have to apply this. And I just did this on the last podcast. This is where the military comes in. So from 2018, election 2018, election 2020, election 2022, and election 2024, the National Guard were called out to the elections. There's no way that the military can be at elections. All right, I'm going to read that word for word. I'm going to pull that up. I should have done that earlier. I'm going to pull it up right now. Title 18, Section 592. That's federal law. Title 18 is Federal Crimes and Criminal Procedures. And here you go. It says, whoever being an officer of the Army or Navy or other person in the civil, military, or naval service of the United States orders, brings, keeps, or has under his authority or control any troops or armed men at any place where a general or special election is held, unless such force be necessary to repel armed enemies of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not for more than 5 years or both, and be disqualified from holding any office of honor, profit, or trust under the United States. Now, if President Trump violated that, you know who would be on his rear end, the liberals. So the National Guard on all their websites have up what? That the troops were at the polls 2018, 2020, 22, 2024. Now, what proves this is also military operation, military occupation, continuity of government, outside of the laws and orders that outline those, is this. You have a clear invocation of Title 10, Section 12302 in March 27th, 2020. You have that in Executive Order 13912. But that was for a different mission. That was for a completely different mission. There's no Title 10 order in any executive order or proclamation or anything by the president from January the 20th, 2017 to the first election of President Trump's presidency, which is November 2018. There's no Title 10 order. You know where that Title 10 has to be? Presidential Emergency Action Document, which is a PED. There's 4 ways the military pairs with federal laws: executive orders, national emergencies, proclamations, treaties. You know what a PED is? You've heard me say it a million times if you listen to me. It accompanies and conjoins with a what? A continuity government. Established by whom? President Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was also a 5-star general. There's no Title 10 order from January the 20th, 2017 to November 2018. The only place it could be is in a presidential emergency action document. And why all of a sudden in the last 3 years is the United States Senate bringing to the floor acts to do what? Change how presidential emergency action documents are what? Disclosed to whom? Because they're not disclosed to the Congress right now. So why all of a sudden is the U.S. Senate bringing up a topic that 99.9% of people have never heard of? Some military's never heard of a PED. Why all of a sudden is the U.S. Senate trying to change national emergencies, the dates of which they run, and also PEDs? Because President Donald John Trump and them are using the literature as it sits to drain the swamp with their literature, and then they're going to change it to where no president can abuse it in the future. Which has been the argument for the last 45 years, that every president has done what? Abused the what? National emergencies. That's bipartisan. All right? So, the National Guard have all the data. We operate on analog, not digital. Now, watch this. Guess who's linked in with Hunter Biden, the real Hunter, Fox News, and the Dominion suit? What does it say? I pulled up AP, who's been banned from the White House, and also Mar-a-Lago, which is a war order, 47 U.S. Code Section 606, that Associated Press to this day has been banned. It's been upheld twice by the appeals court. That's a war order that the president can do that. So that also shows you wartime president, war. Anybody arguing that, again, they're too dumb to pour eye drops into an empty swimming pool if they want to argue that. So you just have to disregard them in the comment boxes. I see some people who's dealing with some twerk in the comment box on Instagram. All right, so you have to just disregard the poor people out there who just want to be dumb. They just want to continue to be dumb. Can't help them. All right, so it reads here: the stunning settlement emerged just as opening statements were supposed to begin, abruptly ending a case that had embarrassed Fox News over 7 months and raised the possibility that network founder Rupert Murdoch and stars Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity would have to testify publicly. Oh, well, look what we have here. This is not the back of the Midnight Rider, because the Midnight Rider has a write-up on it. What do we have here that's also been proven in the first interview to be confirmed? Uh-oh, look at that big boy. 636 pages. Boom. Here's the Biden laptop report. And if you watch the first interview, old Hunter confirms that a copy was given to whom? Rudy Giuliani. Where did it come from? After the FBI. So Rudy Giuliani, who was whose lawyer? Whose lawyer was it? President Trump's lawyer? Received a copy after the FBI had this? And old Hunt, OHB confirmed the laptop's real in his first interview, and in the second interview, They take clips from the first interview, and they talk about Rudy Giuliani again in the second interview. What do we have here? Let's see what we have here on page 502. Who do we have here? You got to pay. When you got 636 pages, it takes a while to flip through. Oh, what do we have here? November the 12th, 2014, which was a big year for the Bidens and Obama. College admission scam is the topic. Who? Tucker Carlson. Oh, well, I'll say. I got family in Oklahoma. They say all the time, well, I'll say. Well, I'll be. Well, let's see what articulate and well-traveled show host Tucker Carlson lived across the street from Hunter in D.C. and has spoken publicly about the close relationship between their wives. Although Tucker has covered the Biden family corruption as much as anyone on cable television, what he, in his limited hangout, did not disclose was his own bite out of the Biden nepotism fruit tree on behalf of his son, Buckley. Kindness to one's neighbors is certainly a laudable quality, but asking for recommendation letters to selective universities revealed an ingratiation with the establishment that Carlson, based on his show transcripts, supposedly detests. So he lied about it. However, prestigious universities and $3 million homes were not only his rewards for fame. Carlson enjoyed a variety of activities, including the show Dancing with the Stars, a more egregious display of back scratching beyond mere recommendation letters, and hoping the families all get dinner soon will come later in this section. Oh, what section is that? That would be page 512. Let's go over here. The next day, Hunter was still in damage control mode and turned to none other than Tucker Carlson, a nice guy, in quotations in the book, which means they have all the dirt on him, which this whole book's been confirmed by quote-unquote Hunter, who dispatched to hound the editor of the Daily Mail for their publication's exposure of his Ashley Madison account and infidelity. Carlson was an extremely loyal attack dog. Just lost my shit on the editor over here. He, David Martosco, claims the London office forced him to do it. He's a pig either way, and I told him so. This whole thing is disgusting and awful, and it breaks my heart that you all have to go through it. I'm really sorry. Let me know if there's anything Susie and I can do to help. That was Tucker to Hunter. Hunter continued spewing the same lies. This is all quotes back to Tucker. Eric Sherwin provided all the information on background that proves this was not me, not my IP address, not my credit card number, not my birthday, etc., but they still come anyway. Carlson was still livid. Are you kidding me? I'm glad you called. What they did was repulsive and immoral, and I hope it wrecked their day. F them. And said it. By the way, Tucker Carlson loves the F-bomb. Carlson had no interest in asking Hunter standard questions, as Chambers from the Daily Mail had done. Nevertheless, Carlson wants us to believe that he stands athwart the so-called ship of fools in D.C. Carlson also expects us to believe that his wife Susie and Hunter's then wife Kathleen were friends. We wonder how Susie felt about Tucker not inquiring at all into Hunter's infidelity. And they have all the emails, everything, text messages, all right here. Tucker. So see, you're learning what strategies are about. You're learning that a lot of people that you thought you loved and support ain't who they are. But for the meantime, because they have big platforms, they have to do what? You got to utilize them, because that's where people are. People don't want to come read, study, and read the straight-up laws and orders of the chronological order of a strategic and special operation via a retired veteran. Oh, no. Don't want the facts. Don't want it straight. Don't want to see what President Donald John Trump's working with. don't want to know what the dash really is on his ball cap that he put there, that I didn't put there, that I didn't recommend, that he put there. He put that there. Oh no, we don't want to do that. Can't do that. God forbid we drain the swamp ethically, morally, lawfully. No, I want to see some drama. I want to see the fireworks. I want to get in and get in the comment box, and I want to be the idiot all day and go and look like Beavis and Butthead having an argument when both of them are dumb as rocks. That's what most people want. So, like the people in the comment box occasionally who come in here, everything's proven lawfully. So if you don't want to know what's in laws, then leave. All right, then page 438, which you'll see if you'll go back and watch both videos. They show both videos again. This green room here, see that green? So see that? There's photos in this book that you can't find on Google. The only place you'll see them are in these Hunter Biden interviews and in this book. There's a lot out there, but they got everything in here. So let's read over some of the other stuff he said. All right. If you'll go to like minute number 20, I do that when you're watching so the Hunter Biden quote unquote interview number 2. All right, it's an hour and 2 minutes. The other one's 3 hours and like 16 minutes long, something like that. It's a long one. All right, so in the second one, it talks about the J6er with the bullhorns, and Hunter says, yeah, well, they were all this, but this one was different. Well, you know the guy with the bullhorns in the suit? You know that he's undercover? Did you know that he's a former special operations, according to other experts? I don't know him personally, but other people do. So why would Hunter exclude him in this interview? All right. Minute number 22 talks about sex trafficking. Well, let's look at one of the topics in this book. What do we have here? Sex-related crimes, prostitution and human trafficking, non-consensual pornography, and in the family. Yeah, Hunter, Joe, Natalie, they kept it all in the family. All right, so let's go to that page, 224. Now, hopefully, they won't block out the screen here. But see, you can see all kinds of perversion in here. And it's pages of it. Phone logs, Zelle, Venmo, you name it. Page after page. It's about 300 pages of nothing but pornography, sex trafficking, human trafficking, text messages, everything. Orgies. Hunter, he didn't discriminate either. All kinds. All right. Then he's forcefully making them do certain things, in which they also show Joe was in a speech talking about people who forcefully make people do this should be put in prison. Right? Look at all these things. Now they blot out the bad spots. They'll blur it or think, but they show everybody. If you're an adult, they show you everything. There's all the phone logs. There's the emails. They got phone numbers, emails, etc. He left everything. There he is with his family members. The week after. So in the first interview, it shows him talking about, oh, the worst day of my life was when I lost my brother. Apparently not. You were banging his wife the next week, Hunter. Old widow was sure not grieving. I guess Wedding Crashers proved one thing. The movie Wedding Crashers, I guess it proved one thing. The end part of the Wedding Crashers, if you've ever seen that movie, they start doing funeral crashing. Well, old Hunter crashed right on into the widow. Bam! But then she turned on him. All in here, text message proof. He tells on himself. She turned on him. And let's see if I can find it really quick and read what he was saying. You wouldn't say stuff like this if you weren't guilty. There's so many pages of filth. Where did the family go? That's non-essential. In the family, here we go. Let's find the one where he was texting a family member. Let's see if I can find it. It's going to be hard too because it's, oh yeah. do not repeat anything. If you say something to Eve and Howard, I promise you, you will spread this like wildfire and I will be completely devastated. Use your head. When have I ever done you wrong? Well, that's gaslighting and that's also manipulation. Because that's saying if you tell people about what I've said or done, then you're going against me and all this other stuff. All right? Then he says, if you could just urge her to never ask me to come home again and then concoct a fight and tell people I'm sexually inappropriate with her daughter, if any one of you ever repeat that again, I swear to God, you might as well put the gun in my head yourself. I can't come home. I will not survive that. I will not survive that. No one can survive that. I'm not allowed to be alone. And he's talking about his niece. All right. So Hunter's sister-in-law, so Bo's widow, after they had their little excursion, then it's been said, and they got message proof in here, that, and I'm trying to find that, that wasn't part of what I was going to do, but basically, oh, that's it. He was talking about how they won't let her be alone with him because he'll FaceTime her naked and then have pornography on in the background. And it also goes to say that he more than likely was doing that while she was with him, his own niece. All right, and they got all the texts and the emails and everything right here. You just have to get it. This is Marco Polo Research Group. Rudy Giuliani received a copy from the FBI. Rudy Giuliani gave this here. And that is confirmed in the book, and it's confirmed in the videos, the interviews with, quote-unquote, Hunter. All right. Let's see if I can find that real quick. It's going to be hard to find that quick, but you can see it plain as day. Let's see, I'm close to it here. I mean, it's just an epic. It's nasty, sure. They blot out everything, but there you go. There's the connection line right there. It goes from Hunter to John Paul Mac Isaac, FBI up here, and then you got Rudy, and then you got Marco Polo. There's your timeline right there. So we'll go over that in a minute again. Let's see, I'll just keep it right here. Minute 23, it shows Michael Wolff in the background. They put images up when they're not showing quote unquote Hunter. Shows Michael Wolff with explosive tapes on how, and I don't like ever calling him by his regular name, but Donald Trump says he likes to F his friends' wives, and that's how he and Melania met, was on the Epstein plane. Well, then it showed Steve Bannon. Well, Steve Bannon is a piece of trash too. All right, Steve Bannon got a name from President Trump called Sloppy Steve. And on a CBS article, President Trump is quoted, and President Trump's put this up again. He has validated me in all kinds of different ways when I've gone after these evil people. Why people still follow people that President Trump gives a nickname to, you're not connecting the dots. Somehow you're missing the boat. You're missing the whole draining of the swamp. When President Trump gives you a nickname like he calls Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas, all right, it'd be hard to recover from getting a bad nickname by President Trump. The whole way when he'll nominate or endorse somebody is he'll give them a nickname and you're not supposed to vote for them. So why can't you apply that to people like Bannon? Bannon was the one that got this Michael Wolff into the White House, who's written all these fake and phony books about President Trump that President Trump has had to hammer and say they're fake, they're phony, they're lies. So you have all these people who they say all the right things to get you in. They lure people in with the trigger words, all the feel-good fuzzy words. They get you in, and they say a lot of things, and they look like they're credible people. But they're not. President Trump shows you this. Who's your loyalty to? President Trump or Bannon? Michael Wolff or President Trump? Who's your loyalty with? And when President Trump tells you something, Why don't you listen to him? So Bannon, they show him and this Michael Wolff. On CBS article, you can pull it up to this day, President Trump says, Steve Bannon has nothing to do with my presidency. He did not help us in our historic win. He lost a valuable seat in the, not him personally, but he was part of losing a seat in Alabama by the stuff he was saying on air, which was an important figure in Alabama, all right, and a Democrat got in there, all right. So all these people during the first 4 years, President Trump told everybody, every person who was a part of my first administration will not be with me anymore. So why do you keep supporting these trash people? They're not loyal, and one of President Trump's biggest thing is loyalty. Well, if you're doing what's right from the beginning, loyalty will be there. He talked about, again, a minute about 23:45, talks about his first interview, which confirms the laptop again. All right. Minute 25 in the video, he talks about victims and Bo. So it talks about his brother Bo, and talks about video and victims. All right, and he's talking about victims, talking about the Epstein victims and all these other things. Victims being videoed. He videoed all his stuff. That's what this whole thing is about. And this laptop was confirmed in both these interviews. And he's sitting there talking about victims. He's got all kinds of sex-related pornography, all you name it. 636 pages. And he's talking about victims. Then he says sex trafficking, human trafficking, and all that stuff, child trafficking, he says it's a conspiracy. So see, it's not to rile you up. It's not to make you mad. It's to go, hey, this is disclosure of what's going to come. Because right when it looks like President Trump's going to lose, he does what? Roars back. All right? You got to go look. This thing was confirmed. And then guess what the host said during that time period? They're talking about victims. Guess what the host said? Firing squad. Oh, isn't that what President Trump talks about? The quick trial? Trial in the morning, execution by end day. Wasn't it President Trump who talked about the quick trial, quick trial, quick trial? And what did the host say when Hunter's sitting there talking about victims? The host said, firing squad. Meaning, we want people who treat people like this to be what? Punished, executed. That's why you got to listen. Too many people don't listen. Minute 27 said men are pigs. Talked about pedophilia. He couldn't even pronounce Ghislaine, right? So there's two different ways to do it. There's a French way and there's a U.S. way. However you want to say it. There's two different ways. He couldn't pronounce Ghislaine. All right, but talks about Epstein had children. So how does he know that Epstein had children? He said that he didn't know anything about the island, never been there, didn't know much about the case, didn't know much about anything. But how did he know that Epstein had children? So he said he didn't know much about it, but he's sitting there saying that. So see, you got to listen. This is, in women, you're really good at listening. So this whole, once you have your foundation set on the laws and orders, these two interviews should be like candy for you. Because it's all an admission, but it's a mirror. Meaning it's like he'll talk about President Trump, right? Well, the people who are drama-fed and emotional-fed, they're going to hear that. They're not going to hear what you're going to hear. So that's just why this ain't for everybody, right? So, then, this is better. So, see, this is what happens in the very first part of the video, the trashing President Trump. And then it builds up. And it builds. So, see, what they do is the people, again, who are drama-fed, emotional-fed, feelings-fed, they already quit the video right out the gate. Right? Most of them have. Most, not all. But then as it builds to the video, this is what he does. At minute 28 of the hour interview, he says not everyone around Epstein was guilty. And the way he says it is even more telling. Because they talk about the Dalai Lama being around Epstein. They talk about, and they show all these different people around Epstein and how he's a popular guy in the 90s and how everybody wanted to be around him. All right? But he said, then he talked about President Trump being what? The most photographed with Epstein. Well, guess what President Trump was, though, in the 90s? He was in Home Alone, right? The movie Home Alone. He was the most talked about person. Everybody wanted to be in photos with President Trump as Donald Trump. Everybody wanted to be around Donald Trump. So if we're all guilty by association just because you're in a photo with someone at a party and that person went on to murder somebody or be someone who embezzled millions of dollars, are you guilty by association simply because of that? If one of your cousins is a drug addict or steals a bunch of stuff because you're related to them and you're at a family reunion with them, does that mean you're guilty too? If that's the case, we're all guilty. We're all guilty. So see what liberals do? See how stupid they are? That's why liberals should be deported. Pronto. Effective immediately. If that's fascist, so be it. Let them go. Bye. Bye, Felicia. Right? How is it that you're guilty because of photo? They've already released all the travel logs of Epstein. President Trump, 93, 97. Do you know when Epstein bought the island? 98. So it's not possible. Now, you can know that your buddy's a piece of trash. You can know your buddy is a douchebag. He talks down to someone. But until those women are what? Go to the law and say, hey, this person's been doing this, this, and this. That's why ladies, women especially, all these women who cried rape for all those years and they weren't really raped, that's why people have to get tough again. Stop crying wolf when you want something. All you're doing is hurting the actual real victims of the actual real crime. And then it also makes it to where the actual real victims don't want to go to the actual law and tell the law what took place because they're afraid what? That they won't be believed because so many people cry wolf. So if you do that, you're actually a piece of shit because you actually have done what? You've hurt the real victims. That's what we're talking about in the early part of the video. You are a piece of the society because you're actually crying wolf for something else other than the actual fact that you're an actual victim. So just being in a photo don't make you guilty. It don't mean you went home with that person, you saw their operations and you saw them steal a trailer, you saw them, sell cocaine or sell. It don't mean you're guilty. Now when you become an accessory, you have that quick, brief moment. Like if you witness someone do something, that's your friend, your relative, or your spouse, significant other, if you witness them do something, you have a window of a glimpse of a window. You have that little brief moment to either do what? Do what's right and stand up no matter what the consequences are. If that person tries to kill you or hurt you or harm you, you have that window to what? Go tell the law what you witnessed. Or you're going to be a what? An accomplice. So we already have laws in place that protect the victims and protect the accomplice before becoming an accomplice. Saying, hey, I was with so-and-so and they did this and they weren't supposed to do that. Well, when you go like that and you're really shattered or you're shaking or you're frantic or you're like trembling, when you're like that, then they'll know. Body language tells. Everything can tell. We have things that's been around for years. God created us so unique with our body language, our language, being a good, decent human person, everything. God created things that people can tell when you're lying. They can detect that. Skill sets can detect that. And then you have a jury for the cases where it may be like, I don't know. Then a jury goes, based on the evidence, da-da-da-da-da. Says not everyone was guilty. Now it builds up. Hang tight. So at minute 29, they bring in President Trump again. And so 1997 was the last the record, the log, I say phone log, but the log of the aircraft, flight log. 98 is when Epstein bought the islands. Here's another admission to the operation. About minute number 30, somewhere in there, if you're fast forwarding through all this stuff, I highly recommend watching the whole interview. Says Pete Hegseth shut down aid to Ukraine without President Trump knowing. And this was Hunter saying that. He was like, oh, his own Secretary of Defense, he said he don't even know what he's doing. He shut down aid to Ukraine and Trump didn't even know about it. Prime example, military operation. The law shows so. And it also shows a delegation of authority. President Trump had already done that in executive orders. I delegate the Secretary of Defense to do these things. And then, in executive order, so you got the executive order that invoked all your military. Well, in the same 180 days, and in the second 100 days, you got Executive Order 13919 in the first 100 days under Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, Executive Order 13919, he gave a direct order to the Secretary of Defense to federalize selective reserves active duty. But then you roll forward a little bit. In the executive document, on the very bottom of Section 1550, it says a memorandum of president. That's normal. That says that in every memorandum. But then it shows in the bottom, it says, I hereby delegate the authority and functions vested in the President of Section 1550 to the Secretary of Defense. No other president in history has delegated the authority to anybody, Secretary of State or Defense, the law from another president. That's exactly what that executive document does in 1550. So then you got to know what 1550 is again. It's in the NDAA of 2020, which was a bill that became an act. That's the defense budget. It says in 1550 codification that it's not going to be in there permanently, meaning it's an operation. It's not permanent part of an amendment to the War Powers Act. It is an operation. It's recorded in the War Powers Act because that is the War Powers Resolution. It's a war power of the president, but it's also put in there by the whom? Congress. That's what Title 50 is. It's Congress, not the president. All right. So what is Joe Biden, quote unquote, doing, relinquishing his authority and functions? That's what that executive document does. So when it says Pete Hegseth is operating on his own, we'll go back to executive document under Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. In the very bottom, that is quote-unquote Joe Biden. Whether you think he's real or fake, doesn't matter. I know the difference, but if you want to go with he's real, then old real Joe to you, puppet Joe to the people who actually know, gave up all his authority as a president and commander-in-chief to the Secretary of Defense. To listen to who? The functions vested in who? The president of 1550. Well, until the president dies, the Secretary of Defense ain't in charge of anything. It would be the vice president listening so the Secretary of Defense would be under the vice president then. President Trump's not dead. So so again, wartime, military occupation, military operation, military government, continuity government. Laws and orders show this. So that was a great little admission in there. All right, minute 31, they do a compilation of the photos only found in the book and on this interview. All right in here on that page I just showed you. All right, the green photos. They show that, and they show a bunch of photos in here as well that hadn't been seen on the internet. And minute 33 is where he says he didn't believe Epstein killed himself. All right, minute 39, he says, I believe he'll make it through. Talking about President Trump. I believe he'll make it through. Meaning all this stuff, he's going to make it through. See, it builds up. It builds up. Minute 39, President Trump, it was a truth about Hunter not receiving Secret Service anymore. And this was just recently. All right, so after a child of the president turns 16, the Secret Service don't guard them anymore. After 16 and 18, you can put an extension on them. But after that, Hunter is older than me. What would he be doing with Secret Service protection? All right, so that shows you abuse of power as well. So they alluded to that in there. At minute 40, he talks about MAGA, which is very important to go listen there, about how he talks about MAGA. Minute 41, they literally tell you about leverage. And he says this. It's so funny. He says, "Oh God, I hope you don't give him that idea." He's talking about President Trump. He's saying, "Oh," to the host, "Oh God, I hope you don't give him that idea to use what he just said as a tactic." Well, what he said has already been in use by law. And talking about the laptop. At minute 44, he says exactly what's been happening to President Trump. Go watch that. Minutes 46 to 49 is another admission that someone who knew Epstein that didn't know what was going on. So it's okay for someone else that's not President Trump to know Epstein but didn't know what was going on, but they're not guilty. So see, all this builds up. It builds up. It builds up to this one particular part. Minute 48, second number 34. It says, to be fair, this is quote-unquote Hunter. He says, to be fair, I have to believe that President Trump, he don't say his name like that, but he's talking about President Trump. He says, to be fair, he could be someone who knew Epstein but didn't know anything that was going on. See how they build this thing up? So if you watch it straight out the gate, drama, President Trump, guilty, da-da-da-da-da. And then it just kind of like does like that all the way through to where he says that. And what's funny about it is if you look real faint, you're gonna have to, if you've got bad vision, sorry if you do, feel sorry for you, but if you have bad vision, you have to look real faint. Pause it. You'll see a blue sky, and in that blue sky, look up, faded in, right up in the corner of the screen, not the very corner, but looks what faded into the blue. It says Associated Press. Who's banned from the White House right now and Mar-a-Lago and presidential travel? The Associated Press appeals court upholds that. That is a wartime order. 47 U.S. Code Section 606. That's a wartime order. CNN's been hammered. PBS, NPR just lost their funding. It's all wartime orders. President Trump's been talking about this for years now. He's been talking about how they need defunded. They got defunded. He went after CNN. They're down small. You're seeing now reports of all these late night hosts being canceled. All right, there's rumors about The View being canceled. There's rumors about Howard Stern being canceled. All these people who are deep state liberals, all right, and these networks, they're all being canceled. All right. So look up in the screen on this Hunter Biden interview. It says Associated Press. Faded in into the blue. You got to pause it again because it's faded in. But you can see a silhouette. It says Associated Press, meaning their material. All right. Like if you're going to quote this or you're going to use that in a book, you got to do what? Hey, this is the Associated Press. This is their material. And they're the ones currently banned from the White House and currently banned from Mar-a-Lago under a wartime order. See, so this is why emotions and all these things, you got to put them aside. You need to know the foundation, the laws and the orders. And anybody who's mad or against or trashing or hating or trying to destroy a retired veteran showing you straight up laws and orders, they are the swamp. They're either dumb or the swamp. There's no other way to split that hair. They're either too incompetent to understand or they're the swamp and they do understand. All right. Minute 55 was that. At an hour. So 1 hour, it only had 2 minutes left. So it's an hour and 2 minute video. This is even epic. He just throws in there about quantum. Talking about quantum computers and AI. Go watch this epic freaking video. But in the first 13 minutes, again, he confirms the operation. All right. habeas corpus. No habeas corpus. So they're telling you what is exactly going on in another kind of manner. So if you want to call this bracing people that don't know what's going on, they're bracing them for what's coming, how, like easing into the water, however you want to look at it, this is a soft disclosure. He's the tip of the iceberg. He's the one that brought them all down. Because this book right here ties in Joe, Obama, Bill, Hillary, and multiple others. It ties them into trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking, money laundering, China, Serbia, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Romania, Libya. It even shows in here text messages about the big guy. Remember President Trump on the debate? You're the big guy. We think you're the big guy. And then he went on to say, we have it all. We've caught them all. Right? Well, here it is. This is part of it. This is just a little bit of it. All right? And then it talks about how Joe got paid millions of dollars just to make an introduction. How would that be? Like some of you that met me personally, how cool would that be to be like, hey, I know Derek Jonhson. If you'll give me $5 million, I'll introduce you to him. Can you imagine? He got paid millions of dollars just to make an introduction to Chinese people. I mean, and then President Trump, I still have the video on my phone a couple years ago. President Trump said, well, my advisors told me not to, but I'm going to. And it was a 5-minute spiel on how Brooks Seaton from Fox broke the story about Joe and $38 million. About $38 million. All right, and it ties to China. Here it is. Here's the text messages. It's all in here. They have everything. Zelly, Venmo, everything. Wire transfers, checkbook, emails, phone numbers, phone records, everything. It's all right here. And it's all confirmed in these. So if you want to be that person who just wants to argue real versus fake, whatever. I'm a winner either way. Patriots are winners either way because the interviews, whether you think he's real or fake, has nothing to do with it. Same thing with round or flat earth. Who the hell cares? Who cares if it's flat or round? Who cares? It don't stop me from doing life. It don't stop me from doing what I like to do with others do. What? Who cares? All right. What matters is in these quote unquote interviews, real or fake, confirms. And guess what these interviews have been done? They've been shared on all the mainstream, CNN, Fox, all of them. They've been sharing these interviews. So it's real. It's a real fake interview if you just want to call it that. I don't care what you call it. It's real. It's part of the plan. It's part of the operation. It's a soft disclosure because old Hunter, old dumb criminal left traces of everything. And this wasn't the first laptop he left behind. This book also confirms that he left another laptop behind in his lifetime. He's that stupid. He's that dumb. He's that lazy. Dumb criminals leave traces. And he's the one that brought the whole kingdom down. So then when you have a leverage position, then when you separate criminals, what happens? They don't know what one of them's saying. They don't know if that other one's being loyal over there in another room or not. So what do? They do normally what most people do. What? They save their own rear end. They say, well, we got evidence on you, and it's pretty statful. All right, and the evidence on you could get you life in prison or even the electric chair. And then what do? Spill it all. All right? Forensic shows. You watch them all the time. You watch forensic shows. You watch cops. You watch all of them. And what happens? There ain't many of them who are loyal. There's not many who are willing to go down for the crime on their own and be loyal. There ain't many. Confirmed, and all this confirms the operation. These 2 interviews on July 21st and August 5th confirm everything. They confirm the operation, and they validate, again, what's in these books of mine that are #1 bestsellers and still going strong. And you get them on rattletrap1776.com. I sign all those who buy through me. If you want them quick, fast, birthday, something like that, you got to go through Amazon. Most of the time, if you want them real quick, if it's a last-minute thing, if you're international, you have to go through Amazon as well. Amazon's been cleaned out. President Trump has a store on there now, so that tells you that right there. So you've seen Jeff Bezos capitulate. You saw Zuckerberg capitulate. You saw Tim Cook, who just recently invested in the U.S. Tim Cook, Mobile, Alabama. That's where I was born. Tim Cook from Apple. All right, so all these people have capitulated. That's what you've been watching. All right, so the laws and orders outline what's going on. Everything's outlined in laws and orders. If it's far-fetched to you, well, it's not far-fetched to everybody. Somebody has to know what's going on. So, again, feelings and emotions need to be set aside. Laws, orders. My delivery is in a military way. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll take my information and steal it and go try to repeat it on their pages and not give credit where it's due. And that's what's dangerous. We can't let the swamp grow back. All right? It's just a plain and simple. You need people who can think on the front, who are passionate about it, know what's going on from a critical thinking. Critical thinking is not regurgitation and then going, oh, that makes sense. That's not critical thinking. Critical thinking is someone who knows it on the front. Have you noticed I don't share anybody's information? Have you noticed I don't share anything? Have you noticed that? I don't share anything. So it's all what? Here and here, because I know it, because experience, but then also reading, studying, passion. All right? That's why you don't see me sharing people. You don't see me endorsing people. There's a big difference in a shout out and endorsement, by the way. I don't endorse people because people let anybody down, and when you know someone's not official capacity, you don't share them. All right, so it's very key. People need to learn that. President Trump shows you all the time. Now, President Trump hadn't said anything about Derek Jonhson or Rattletrap because we're still in an operation. And it doesn't matter if he does or doesn't ever say anything about me. I've been in photos with the real President Trump. I've been to Mar-a-Lago quite a few times. I made the New York Times list for extremists who go there. All right, and then me and Siggy Flicker and a few others, right, made the extremist list. So these things don't just happen. All right, they don't just happen that way. And so someone who's compassionate will tell you straight. Someone who's honest is going to tell you straightforward. So I'm a straightforward person. I'm a direct person. I'm not your husband. I'm not your boyfriend. All right, I'm not any of those things. Right? So I'm going to come honest and straight at you. So if you're seeing me in your screen and that sounds like I'm riled up or whatever, it's normally because it's passion and I know what I'm talking about, and I'm tired of people getting duped by fake people, fraud people, regurgitators, brown nosers, and posers who don't think critical on the front, and all they do is mislead you, and they confuse you, and they lead you down negativity. They get you mad, frustrated, upset, and they make your whole day rotten around your friends, your family, your spouse, your significant other, and I don't want that for you. I'm saying, hey, somebody's got to know, and I'm one of those somebodies. All right? So I don't share people. I don't share. I take President Trump law by law, order by order, tied into the laws that are on paper from years ago, or the order that's recent, tied in, show you where to find it. Here's the receipts. Go click on it. But you got to read it this way, and you got to put it in this certain order, or it's not going to make sense. Because this is a strategic operation. It's an operation, meaning it's chronological. It's like buying a house. You've heard me say that. When you buy a house, well, if you didn't build the house and you're buying a house that someone else built, then the first thing you want to do is look at the foundation. Is the foundation solid? Is it on solid ground? Is it on solid stilts? Whatever it may be. Then you look at the walls. You look at that structure of it. Look at the walls. Look at the corners. Look at the posts. Look at the roof. Make sure those things. You don't start hanging photos and putting up your pictures of your significant other or your little boyfriend, girlfriend smiling at you, your husband, right? No, you do that first. You don't start painting the shutters first. So this whole operation, they had to go, well, what was the biggest thing first, and then work their way down. You seen President Trump just today. He posted a video up. He posted a photo up, rather. And he's been doing some videos of D.C., but he put a photo up today of how we're going to clean out D.C. He said, if you're homeless, we'll take care of you, but it's not going to be close to the Capitol. If you're a criminal, you're going to jail. He told you March 25th, 2023 in Waco, Texas. Now, that's been over 2 years. He told you we're going to clean out the homeless, and we're going to do what? Protect our monuments, build them back up, the ones that's been torn down. We're going to tear down ugly buildings. He's told you the whole time. It's been a proclamation. It's time-stamped, and it's a verbal proclamation of what's coming. But see, people didn't see that at that moment, so they did what? They gave up. Or they jumped ship. And guess who's going to be right in the end? And it ain't about being right or wrong, but guess who's going to be right? I am. Because I'm operating what President Trump's working with, because the military is a chain of command. And just because you're down here and you don't know it an exact date of what's going to happen, that don't mean anything. I'm operating the way you're supposed to operate. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, tasked with what I've been tasked to do. All right? And everybody needs to live your life one day at a time. It's kind of like people when they talk about the Bible. People out there talking about, well, what if the Bible's missing books? Well, you don't even read the books you have that the Bible has. Most people who say that don't even read the books of the Bible that they actually have. They're worried about what it don't say and what it ain't got and all these other things. Well, if you have the Bible, and if you believe that God created all things, or a spirit, or a great spirit, whatever you want to call it, term it, title it, doesn't matter. If you believe in creation by a creator, which only makes sense, but if you believe in God, then you have to believe that if God created all things, that He made it meant to where, okay, the book may have started with 1,200 books, and now it's got 77. Well, there you go. You still have 77. And until you have 0, you read the 77. You don't worry about what you ain't got. There's so many laws and orders in place that more than outline what's going on, or I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't even be here, first off. Then I wouldn't have these, second off. Somebody's got to know. And the level of disrespect, again, for our veterans and our military is unprecedented right now. The level of disrespect. And that also comes in various forms, such as influencers out there stealing information, making it look like theirs, copying and pasting, making it look like theirs, no credit where it's due. Veterans are not the front line, because the military that's in are, but they're under a chain of command in a different capacity. Veterans are in a different place, in a different capacity. That chain of command, President Donald John Trump, rolls from here to the military president, then to veterans. If there was a mandatory callback, which there won't be, but if there was one, and it required every veteran out there, guess who's going? Me. Veterans. Not these civilians, not these people who are posing and brown-nosing, not those. Now, there's a way to be someone who is community-oriented, neighbor-oriented, a patriot, in the sense of, hey, here's some information you need, but you don't make it look like yours. You don't make that, because if you go viral or something happens, then you forever have to do what? Steal and plagiarize. That's why that's important. And I know someone that happened to recently. So now they forever got to take videos that are somebody else's and share what somebody else thought of and created, because they didn't, but it went viral. And now they're the spotlight. And again, in the end, why it matters is this one reason. What's going to happen to a lot of people out there when they realize that these quote-unquote influencers could have known the whole time that there is a unique blueprint in place, chronological order of laws and orders that outline a military operation, military government, military occupation, and continuity government. When they find out that there's been a blueprint in place, and all they needed that whole time to quell their sense of fear, their frustration, their anger, their bitterness, their sadness, whatever it may be, they're frantic, anxiety, stress. When they find out that there was a substance that didn't have emotions and feelings wrapped around it, when they find that out, that there's a book that's in place that has a platform that if they can't even afford the book, there's a platform who has all that same material on it. When they find that out, they should disassociate from you. Whether they will or not, probably won't, because a lot of Americans are compassionate. But they should, because how the swamp grows back is allowing the swamp rhetoric and the swamp mentality to stay around and to hang around and get into the positions and get into those slots, all because they may sound good, but they may not have it right here. So that's why feelings and emotions, in all kinds of ways, you have to be careful with your feelings and be careful with your emotions. Because these quote-unquote Hunter Biden interviews are epic. They are so epic, it's not even funny. When you have a foundation, a solid foundation, what's that Bible talk about? That Bible talks about building your house on what? On the rock, on solid foundation, not shifting sands. So see, that's why so many people look atrocious right now with their feelings and emotions, because there's a rock in place. There's a rock. It's already there. It's there. But until they study it and read it and comprehend it in that chronological and apply it right here, I love the saying, knowledge is not power, it's the application of knowledge that's power. Until you apply that, then that Hunter Biden interview is no good to you. But patriots, when you break it down like that, and you go back over this video and you take all those minutes and all those spots in part 2, part 1 is a whole little different thing, but it's part 1 is just really just him talking about, this book here, and another. He don't talk about the book, but he validates everything in it. Talks about Rudy Giuliani and all that stuff. So validation. The Hunter Biden interviews validate this, and it also validates. Well, I'm not gonna let them catch me. No, I'm not gonna let them catch the Midnight Rider. Which reminds me, as I close, this is so hilarious to me, just because I don't really care in another way. I know who I am, records, everything, perfect. But remember back when Alex Jones was talking about how the FBI was coming after him and all these other things? For those patriots out there that know what I'm about to say, I mean, think about this. I'm a retired veteran. I have told everything lawful, laws and orders. I've told everything, shown all the receipts of everything taking place from top to bottom, side to side, if you know what I'm talking about. Why hasn't the FBI been at my door? Why hasn't the CIA given me a visit? Why haven't I been heckled and harassed by any three-letter agency or anybody for that matter? Why is it that even haters, even the people who are trying to steal my stuff, all this, I've been public everywhere, all over the country. No one shows up. No one heckles. No one's there. No one does anything. Why is that? Because the facts are the facts. The laws are the laws. The orders are the orders. I'm authentic. I'm real and official. It's that simple. And laws and orders can't be debunked, because laws and orders that are in place that you see visuals to and actions to means exactly that. Because they can't be debunked. That's not how laws and orders work. Go watch these interviews and apply all the timeline, and go look up my videos where I talk about the writ of habeas corpus and the operation. Go find the videos where I heavily talk about Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, and apply it.